Crossover Thursday in the playoffs. Locked On Steelers meets Locked On Texans. We go over all the biggest matchups here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers. He's John Hickman of Locked On Texans, and we're going to get you ready for this AFC wildcard showdown Monday night at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. As always, we want to remind you to get all your shows, Locked On Steelers, Locked On Texans, Locked On Everything, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube.
Yes.
Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes from both of our channels. Reminder, Locked On Steelers and Locked On Texans are both part of the #1 sports podcast network. That is the Locked On Podcast Network. And Crossover Thursday, as always, is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. John!
Yes,
it's
sir.
been some years, buddy. We ain't seen each other since 2023.
When I saw you guys benefit from a missed field goal, the first thing I thought of was, hey, you know what? I'll be seeing and talking with CC soon. That's what I called my boy Chris Carter. And so I was excited for that. But I'm also just excited for the for Houston to have the opportunity to get their first playoff, game on the road in the first wild card matchup. And then also, I think it's a favorable matchup for Houston. I also like some of the things that Pittsburgh does. Tough team. Under Mike Tomlin, they got a lot of grinded out games that they've been able to win, 7-3 and 1-score victories. A lot of the makeup Houston has. So I think the Steelers and the Texans will be a tough 1-score game. Whoever's going to win, obviously I'm picking Houston, but I'm excited.
I'm excited too, man. I also thought it was funny. A lot of Texans fans are like, finally, not a Saturday day game. It's just you guys couldn't get off the afternoon schedule. But Steelers fans are excited as well. It's the first time the Steelers will host a playoff game where fans can attend since 2018. Their last home playoff game was actually 2020, but of course that was the COVID season, so fans weren't allowed to attend. So this is the first time Steelers fans could come and root for their team in the playoffs. I wanted to lead by talking about what I think is the best unit in this game, and one of the best units, maybe the best unit in this playoff, and that's the Texans defense. They dropped officially to being the #2 scoring defense, but they sat their starters in the second half of last game. But there's no doubting this defense. That's why the Texans are 12-5. That's why they're in the playoffs. They're a big part of why they've won 9 straight games. When we talk about this team, what is the biggest strength that they have? Mike Tomlin says it's their edge rushing duo, who we'll get into more later. But what's their biggest strength that you see, and the biggest weakness that you think they have to protect against?
Going off the strength, man, you know how you have good pass rushers that cheat inside and you can run at them, i.e. Michael Parsons. That you can't do that here in Houston. Danielle Hunter does a very good job. One of the more, J.J. Watt called him one of the more underrated players in the NFL. 15 sacks this season, not a Pro Bowler, vote in sight, which is crazy to us here in Houston, but he plays the run very well. But Will Anderson, the young buck, he does a great job of getting after the quarterback, but I also think his best attribute is stopping the run. And so you have 2 great edge defenders that can flush everything back on the inside. If you try to run at them, they do a good job of getting those TFLs, right, which is amazing for Houston. I think Will Anderson was, in terms of like the havoc rate, when you look at sacks, tackle for losses, and all of those things combined, I think he was top 3. And then with the Houston's defense all together up front, no Tim Settle, no Mario Edwards. Those 2 defensive tackles played a huge role in getting Houston to be in the #1 defense for majority of the season up until the last week of the NFL season. But Tommy Togiai has been phenomenal. You guys have Keanu Benton, who's played some great football for y'all, right? Togiai isn't the sack getter like Benton is, but he does a very good job of getting those TFLs, being in the right spot, making sure that if you run inside the gaps, you're not going to get far, which is something that I think for the Steelers, you guys struggle with running inside the tackles. And so going up against the Houston Texans, that's going to be a hard battle for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win. So I think when we look at the defense, just how they are able to win with a 4-man pass rush. In the NFL now, we see a lot of teams blitz. We see a lot of teams do things with the first and second level to get after the quarterback or to stop the run. But Houston has been able to win with 4 men up front, and that has allowed for their secondary kind of, Kamari Lassiter to have a great season. Derek Stingley to have a great season. Safety Kalen Bullock, Jalen Petrie, Azeez Al-Shire in the middle. Like, those guys have been able to do their job and focus on their job because the front 4 guys are making it easier. Now, if we look at a weakness for Houston, they've been rotating safeties to play alongside Kalen Bullock all season. And I think that has hurt with communication on the back end of their defense and those plays that Houston has allowed, which we've talked about a lot here in Houston, and they got to clean up on that. Do I fear that against the Pittsburgh Steelers? Not necessarily, but also didn't fear that against the Indianapolis Colts, and they were able to reel off a couple of big plays. Alec Pierce is a different beast than what you guys may have in Pittsburgh, but still, when we look at the amount of 20-yard gains, 15-yard gains, 60-yard gains, 40-yard gains on the year, Houston has way too many for not only our liking, but their head coach, D'Amico Ryan's liking. And he has mentioned execution every week. I feel like I hear that E word. And a part of that is from the defense allowing those explosive plays or those plays on 3rd and long and 4th and long where teams are trying to convert. They're allowing them to extend a drive. So that's a weakness for the Houston Texans defense.
I'm right with you there. When I did my film study, I always do a film study for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette after a game. And in my film study, I was looking at the downfield passing that won against the Ravens. They were able to hit on a lot of explosive plays. And a lot of it was, and this was Aaron Rodgers without DK Metcalf, who was his #1 deep ball guy all year. He was suspended for the last 2 games. And Aaron Rodgers was able to find Calvin Austin, Pat Fryermuth, Adam Thielen, different guys. And he didn't find it by them just winning one-on-one. He found it by hitting soft spots in the Ravens defense. And that's what he has to do if he's going to lead the Steelers to beat the Texans defense. And I looked up using sports information systems. The Texans have given up 21 receptions on deep balls and 759 receiving yards on deep balls. That's 19th and 21st in the NFL. They've also allowed 5 touchdowns at deep ball, tied for 17th in the NFL. That's where the Steelers are going to have to try to, not live the whole game, but they're going to have to find a way to balance their offense with that deep attack. And DK Metcalf being back could be an advantage there because he's been the guy and he's been rested for the last 2 weeks. But the Steelers have to hit on some of those to open up different things because the Steelers, the #1 way that the Steelers like to move the ball is they stretch you out vertically and then they dump it off to Jaylen Warren or Kenneth Gainwell, and then they make guys miss because they have been – Kenneth Gainwell is the team MVP this year. They're #2 running back. But he has been spectacular this year, so much better than anyone predicted, even myself, what he could do. And that to me is the biggest thing for the Steelers. If they're going to win against this Texans defense, Aaron Rodgers has to take shots in this game, and he's got to hit on them. But that also means that offensive line has got to protect him to give him time to get those shots. And as Mike Tomlin said, and we'll get to the edge rushers later in the show, Mike Tomlin said that's the strength of this Texas defense. He said that Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter are the best edge rushing duo, which I kind of thought was a way they'll be like he said that in the press conference, and I thought, what's TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig as a trio gonna be like? Oh, okay, coach. When they hear that, but again, he wasn't fudging his words. Those dudes are some bad brothers.
And I also want to add to this point, when we look at things that can play out in the favor of Pittsburgh versus the Houston Texans defense, just the inconsistencies on tackling. This team has had moments where over 10 missed tackles, 12 missed tackles, 15 missed tackles throughout stretches of game. Now they've gotten better at points throughout the season. Then they hit another couple of high missed tackle moments. Then they got a little bit better. But Kenneth Gainwell, of all of the weapons that the Pittsburgh Steelers have offensively, he may be the weapon that I think can hurt Houston the most. I'm not necessarily worried about DK. I do want to ask you when we come back about the Steelers wide receivers and some of the issues that they may have for themselves personally and what they can present for Houston. But Gainwell is a player that I can see on 3rd and 5 getting the ball dumped off and just convert it for a first down. And if you convert for that first down, then what we know, that's a drive extender that helps with time of possession, and that limits the impact that Houston's offense can have on this game, and it also just continues to hurt the Houston Texans defense get off the field.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about that. And, of course, C.J. Stroud, who I think is in a unique position in these playoffs when we talk about young quarterbacks that are in these playoffs. I want to talk about that with John. It's Locked On Steelers and Locked On Texans on a crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast Network. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, their personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. I love how it tracks all my subscriptions and lets me cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. No more hunting down customer service numbers. The automatic transaction category is a game changer. I can finally see where my money goes each and every month. You can set budgets, goals, personalized insights, receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. Let Rocket Money help you research and reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's favorite sports book. Fridays always feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the game tips off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is officially your pregame, a limited window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. We're back here on Crossover Thursday. Chris Carter, John Hickman, Locked On Steelers, Locked On Texans. John, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers a little bit more in a bit, but I want to talk about C.J. Stroud because this is a guy.
Let's do it.
He is the Texans offense ranked just outside the top 10 as far as scoring. He's been able to make plays. He's done a great job of protecting the ball. But C.J. Stroud, this is a guy who, when he came in, he was the rookie of the year. He didn't have the best second year last year, but this year he's back in the playoffs. He gets a chance to kind of show off what he's been able to grow at. What do you think is his biggest strength that he's developed in his third year in the NFL that the Steelers need to be watching out for?
Man, great question. Really great question. And so I want to, before I talk about that for C.J. Stroud, I want to highlight that, like we open up the show, the Steelers are 7-3 in one-score victories this year. And I think we kind of represent, when we represent our squads and your team every day, I think what CC does and what I do and what we're doing right now, we have to wake up super early this Thursday to do this show. So our teams grind it out. I'm grinding it out through a root canal. We grind it out for our everydayers and our listeners. But 7-3 in one-score victories. In those 7 victories, teams have committed 17 turnovers. When we look at the growth from C.J. Stroud, especially coming back from the concussion, he has done a remarkable job in taking care of the football. So when I look at where he's grown this year, and also how I kind of liken to how he could use his growth to play against the Pittsburgh Steelers team to win that game, it's taking care of the football. And I also think since coming back from that concussion, he's done a better job in not creating bad sacks for himself, which hurt the team, obviously. You know, if there is a sack to be made, they just go down or throw the ball out, live for another down. Early in the season, a lot of the second half of last year, we would see C.J. Stroud get into a mode where he's trying to make a play happen. And sometimes, you ain't gonna be able to outrun that athletic edge, right? When you look at playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers, T.J. Watt coming back, Highsmith on the other side, those guys get Benton in the middle. Who, goodness gracious, just Harmon as well. I love those guys that you guys got in on the inside. Hayward, the vet. You're not going to always be able to either outrun some of these guys or outstrength some of these guys, right? In terms of angles and just getting down. So I think he's done a much better job of just realizing the pressure that's in front of him if the read isn't there, then just trying to throw the ball away and taking care of the ball. Of all of the things that he's had to work through this year, and I've kind of likened him a little bit to being a game manager. And Russell Wilson in his first 3 seasons, he had to relearn a new offense, and he's doing so with only one true wide receiver, one out there. The other wide receivers, Christian Kirk, you could count on him. Donald Schultz has played some good football for the Houston Texans all year, but you have to count on a rookie wide receiver, 2 rookie wide receivers to get it done. That could be tough with no Joe Mixon in an offensive line and had to shuffle a lot this year. So just his processing of how to not to make a bad situation worse, especially post-concussion, I think has been his superpower.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that have been really interesting to watch about CJ Stroud. I loved him in college. It was funny. There's episodes, if you go way, way back, I was saying like, hey, Steelers fans, maybe hold off on drafting the Kenny Pickett year. Let's wait for the Bryce Young, CJ Stroud year. And of course, that did not happen. And the Steelers have been searching for their franchise quarterback since. But I think CJ Stroud, protecting the football has been huge for this Texans team. When you go back and you look at how they've played this season, they've allowed the second fewest, or the second fewest turnovers of any offense in the NFL. And the Steelers have kind of made their hay there a bit in some of their their biggest wins. Their win over the Patriots, they forced 5 turnovers in that game to win 17-14, and that was early in the season. But I will point out that like as the season continued, turnovers weren't the biggest. Like I think the Steelers became a less turnover dependent team. The 2 of their biggest wins early on were the Patriots in New England, and they beat the Colts back when they were 7-1, and everyone thought the Colts were going to be the top dogs. In those games, they had 11 turnovers, so that counts up for 11 of those 17 were from those 2 games. But if you look back in the past month, literally a month now, because this is the 8th. But when it started when they won the last 4 out of 5 games, they got 1 turnover against the Ravens, 1 turnover against the Dolphins, no turnovers against the Lions, and 1 turnover against the Ravens in their last game. Of their wins, they got 3 total turnovers, and I think that's where this defense is a bit different. Is that they have adjusted early in the season, and for Texans fans who might not follow the Steelers as closely, the Steelers had a plan. Because they went and got Jalen Ramsey. They went and got Darius Slay to pair with Joey Porter Jr., who, by the way, has not allowed a single touchdown on him all season. He's been balling, man. They thought those 3 guys could just man up guys and just say, hey, we're going to run a lot of man coverage, a lot of cover 1, and we're going to send a lot of heat because these guys can all live on islands. They're going to take away receivers, and we're going to win. And within the first month and a half of the season, they saw that they could do that because they went up against they gave up big plays against the Jets. Then when they played the Bengals in the first time, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins just cooked the older cornerbacks. Joey Porter held up in his coverage in that game. And then the same thing happened with the Packers. And after that Packers loss, they said, all right, this didn't work. Let's shuffle it up a little bit. And they moved Jalen Ramsey back to free safety. They took Darius Slay out of the lineup. They put in some of their younger corners. They got James Pierre, who's also been playing very well. They signed Asante Samuel. He's now the 3rd guy on the outside that they use. Brandon Echols, a veteran that they brought in. He's been in the slot. And they found some continuity. And they still need to work out some chemistry. But I think that's the biggest thing that C.J. Stroud's going to have to watch out for in this game is the chemistry on the back end has been so much better. Now, last week, you're going to see those 3 touchdowns they gave it to Lamar Jackson. That's because they were selling out. They're saying, Lamar Jackson, you will not beat us with your legs. And he only had 9 rushing yards. They were like, beat us with your arm. And he almost did. It was a missed field goal to the right of being able to do that. As Mike Tomlin said, that's the hill we were willing to die on, but we didn't. But at the same time, that's something that I think that CJ Stroud has to watch out for in this game. The Steelers, like you said, their interior has gotten a lot better. Derek Harmon's been really good. Cam Hayward leading all defensive tackles and snaps at 36 years old, which is
crazy.
It's insane.
That's crazy. And then you almost lose him in the offseason. Wasn't he like contemplating?
He wanted a contract. Like he wanted a contract boost because he was getting paid not even the top 20 on a per year basis of defensive tackles. And so he said, I want a few more $1 million. And like a lot of people in Pittsburgh like, how dare you ask for that money? And now everyone's like, we love you, Cam. We're sorry. And so it's just like, you know how
feels
fans,
like so you remember those AFC North battles between
yep, he's one
Pittsburgh
of them. He's one of them.
And Baltimore, and he feels like the last remaining. Like TJ Watt is TJ Watt, right?
Yeah,
but Cam feels like the last remaining soul of
that.
That classic. Man, they changed the game literally. Like Ryan Clark and them boys, and then Troy Polamalu, and then later on, man, y'all had some good linebackers. So shout out to Cam at 36 years old, still getting it done. One of them guys. Don't know if he's going to be an NFL Hall of Famer. Will for sure be a Pittsburgh still a Hall of Famer. But he's been one of those guys that if you love football, you got to love Cam and everything that he's brought to the table. I wanted to ask you before we go into the break, and maybe you can expand on it moving forward. When we look at some of the things that the Steelers offense does well and don't do well, I have yet to find a positive tweet about any receiver outside of DK Metcalf in terms of being able to get open. So you guys got some fast guys, but they have struggles with getting open.
They do. If you look at separation numbers, DK Metcalf is their best separator, and that's not exactly his forte. It's just straight up athleticism, and he's going to be consistent and work you down. But I think, and this is where it's going to come down to, the Steelers, they're going to need Aaron Rodgers to find to hit the Texans where they're not. This isn't going to be a game where Calvin Austin. I mean, you look at the game-winning touchdown he caught. He just cooked the Ravens cornerback Chidobe Awuzie, like just ran a hitch and go, and Awuzie just broke his ankles, and he was wide open. But that's not something I think that the Steelers can depend upon too much. What I think that Aaron Rodgers has got out of this team and has been worked really hard to cultivate in this receiving group and the tight end unit, which is also going to be big for this game, is these guys know when and where to be to execute certain concepts. And if the offensive line gives Aaron Rodgers time, they trust that he's going to find them, and that's how they're going to make their plays. Let's talk about how that could play a factor in the next break here, after the next break here on Crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast.
Boom.
Chris Carter, John Hickman. We'll keep it rolling right here. But first, we'll remind you this show is also brought to you by Ultimate QB. The draft picks positions are set, and so many teams are looking for their franchise quarterback. If you ever wish to become a pro quarterback and getting drafted first overall by the Texans or the Steelers, well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number one draft pick quarterback. It's your job to lead your team to greatness, to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number one QB career mode game on the mobile app store, and introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. Sign contracts, train and upgrade yourself, build chemistry, and evolve your teammates. Give input on your GM and roster moves. Play the actual games in 2D and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. You'll deal with the ups and downs of a QB career, from rookie nerves to playoff drama, and every choice shapes your journey. Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline, perfect for when you want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special just for you guys. Use the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps in the game store, and you'll get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, football legend QB1. It's your legacy. Back here on Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers here with John Hickman of Locked On Texans. John, we were talking about, you asked about the receivers. I do think a lot of this is going to come down to Aaron Rodgers. There's one guy who I think that the Texans really need to be worried about in this passing attack, and it's not a receiver. It's tight end Pat Freiermuth, because
absolutely
he hasn't gotten a whole lot of targets this year. In fact, he's fourth on the I think he's actually fourth or fifth on the Steelers' total targets on the year. And I have been pounding the table for months that they need to get this guy more involved. And whenever they do, he makes some big plays. He did so against the Ravens, 5 targets, 3 catches for like 50-some yards. This is a week where the Steelers got to respect Derek Stingley. They got to respect this pass rush. They've got to respect Kamari Lassiter if he plays. I want to ask you about his availability. But where you can hurt this Texans team is if you can get Pat Freiermuth matched up with like Miles Bryant, if you get him matched up with one of the linebackers, if you can get Pat Freiermuth matched up against those guys, that's got to be a place where Aaron Rodgers hits at least 4, 5, 6 times in this game.
Well, I will say, of the two linebackers that we primarily see, if he gets matched up with Azeez outside, that won't be good for Pittsburgh. If he gets matched up with Henry To'oTo'o, that may play in the favor of 60-40 for Pittsburgh. Maybe actually 70-30 for Pittsburgh, if I'm being honest. And maybe 75-25. Henry T is great at stopping the run, just crashing downhill. He's had his struggles this year in coverage. But and talking about the tight end group, Trey McBride had a day against Houston. Brock Bowers had a decent day against Houston. The tight ends this year hasn't necessarily been amazing when they take on the Houston Texans, but there have been moments where they've been able to kind of hurt the Texans defense. So it is something that the Texans need to look out for. Your question, what was your question one more time?
Oh, just what are the when looking at how Aaron Rodgers attacks with these different guys, if there's schematic holes where he's going to be able to find, because I don't think this is going to be about Calvin Austin cooking up Stingley or Lassiter with a footwork fire the way he did the Ravens. The Ravens don't have the corners that the Texans do. I think if there's going to be a way for the Steelers to hit on some of those deep shots, it's going to be about finding those schematic holes in the Texans defense and where you might see those being.
Yeah, I think it'll be deep. So right now, Kalen Bullock, who has 4 interceptions on the year, I think his improvement from his rookie year to this year has been amazing. A lot of us don't talk about it a lot. He's been the staple for Houston back deep. Now Houston runs a lot of nickel. Jalen Petrie around the line of scrimmage. We know that, and I can't wait to see who's going to out hit who in this game. 2 physical teams, right?
Yeah,
but Houston has had communication issues among anything this year that has allowed for those deep shots. Just last week, taking on Alec Pierce, and they ended up cutting Kavon Wallace for this. You see Kavon Wallace cheat down, and it looked like the coverage was supposed to be cover 2, and that got, quote-unquote, Tremont Smith beat, but safety was supposed to be back deep. So communication issues has hurt Houston all year, dating back to the first 3 games of the season where they released C.J. Gardner-Johnson because of some of these communications back deep. If that happens, then that'll be a world of trouble for Houston because, like you mentioned, for Calvin Austin, it ain't about just getting open right out. Not against Houston, right? And it ain't been that for the Steelers all year. Like, they don't just route guys up to get open. Right. But if the Houston Texans have communication errors and issues against that unit that does have speed, then once they get the ball in their hands with 3 yards ahead of whoever, then you can just count that for a big play or to the house. And that is where my true worry is for the Houston Texans defense. Just
catch and run
errors.
Catch and run is where the Steelers make a lot of plays. They have the second most yards after the catch of any offense in the NFL. And one thing I liken to when I look for styles, I liken the way the Texans play a little bit to the Vikings. And the Vikings were the first time we really got to see this Steelers offense explode for a bit with DK Metcalf. He had that 80-yard catch and run. I was there in Ireland when he pulled that off.
You went to that game?
Yes, sir. Went to that game. I was blessed to be able to go. But it was a great time. Shout out to our friends Sarah and Barry for hosting us. But it was that was the game where I was like, okay, against the pass rush, this can work. And I will also say this Steelers offensive line, and we talked about this more in depth on the Wednesday episode, it's improved. Broderick Jones, the first round pick from 2023, has been out. He's on injured reserve, and I don't expect him back anytime soon. But Dylan Cook, the 4th string left tackle, has come in, and he has been phenomenal. I think he's allowed, 3 or 4 pressures in his first 4 starts total. He's been really solid there. Troy Faltano, the first round pick from 2025, he's been really special. Zach Frazier's been kicking a lot of butt up in the interior. This has to be a game where they come through. And the Steelers, they live off the quick passes. They make it easier on their offensive line. But they have done a great job. They shut out Myles Garrett both times they played him, both the time that they lost and the time that they won. They were able to limit Aiden Hutchinson much into, I think, a sack or two, but this is a game where they need the full line to give Aaron Rodgers time to find those holes and get the Steelers playmakers and chances, because to your point about the missed tackles, that's where the Steelers live. Jaylen Warren forced 11 missed tackles last week with his ability to just make guys miss. Him and Kenneth Gainwell, Freiermuth down the middle, and then if they can hit on a couple of those deep balls, that's, I think, the Steelers' wheelhouse of how they want to live in this game to keep a balanced attack and get just enough. But make no mistake, John, we're talking a lot about CJ Stroud and Aaron Rodgers. I do believe this is going to be a rock fight. I don't think the winner scores more than 21, 23 points in this game.
Oh, yeah. It's gonna be one of them dog fights, and I think this is the game is made for both teams, right? Like, Monday night, the crazy stat, the Steelers had lost at home on a Monday night and since '91 or something like that.
Yep.
I wasn't even born yet. I may have just been conceived. So, like, this is a perfect conception of a primetime, hard-hitting game. And on one side, you got TJ Watt, who can get after the quarterback, Highsmith. You got them three dogs in the middle, led by the junkyard dog and Hayward. Then on the other side, you got Jalen Petrie, who will knock you out legally, right? With the Guardian cap, he don't care. You got Aziz, who would knock you out. You got some hard hitters over there. You got Will Anderson, who would chase down that run. And if this is one of those moments where, and I hope it's not for Aaron Rodgers' sake, but if he tries to extend the play because the play needs to be made, Will don't give up. That motor is ridiculous. Danielle Hunter ain't giving up. And so how they get after the quarterback is just relentless. They call it the swarm mentality out here in Houston in the NRG. This is two defenses that I think will make the fight. Like, we're going to walk away from this game thinking, man, if the offense could have made one more play against that defense. But we'll probably walk away saying they couldn't because how great both the defenses will be playing. And if I could pick like a star in this game, an X factor in this game, there's no way Kamari Lassiter is going to miss this game. Kamari, one of them dogs, man.
Okay.
And he's a Georgia Bulldog, but he is one of them dogs. And I like the matchup between Kamari and DK, two physical guys that will get physical at the line of scrimmage, that will get physical past 5 yards, that will get physical when the ball is in the air. And I would shade Kalen Bullock over towards Kamari's side. All of those short passes, hey, Houston don't allow a lot of like yak yards outside of those explosive plays. Everything underneath, they pretty much come down with it. So I like that matchup between Kamari and DK, and I like Derek Stingley being able to shut down half the field. I don't see Aaron Rodgers targeting him a lot, and that could allow for the Houston Texans front four to just get after the quarterback.
Absolutely. The Texans, I believe, rank 7th. I'm doing some quick count here. I think it's 8th. They rank 8th in yards after catch allowed on the season. They have 1,634 yards there. That's going to be a big part of this game. But hey, still a lot to break down. This is the Monday Night Football game, so you'll see 2 more episodes from each of us breaking this thing down. John, thanks so much for joining me here on Crossover Thursday. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
At John_Hickman12 on Twitter. Some Sports Guy on Instagram, and I also, write for Forward Times publication here in Houston. I do recaps for them as well. And, of course, on the Locked On Texans podcast, your team every day. Shout out to my everydayers from the Himalayas. We're going to make this game rock and roll, baby.
Absolutely. Thank you, John, for joining me. Thank you all for joining me here on Crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Christopher Carter. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media. At Carter Critiques is always my handle. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette while we're set to close on May 3rd. We're still going to be powering through all the way through this season and the draft. So get all of our written work there. And of course, find me here every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of your Locked On Texans or Locked On Steelers episodes. We'll see you again Friday for both of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network.